Hey guys, I'm back in honor of Stephen King's It crushing it currently in the movie theaters. I thought this would give me the opportunity to maybe review some of his other famous adaptations to film. Today I'm going to be talking about Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. Now you might be saying, Cody, why are you calling it Stanley Kubrick's The Shining? Isn't it Stephen King's The Shining? Yes and no. Why is that? Well, yes, Stephen King wrote a novel called The Shining, and yes, I'm talking about the 1980 film adaptation of that novel. But why do we call it Stanley Kubrick's Shining? Well, other than because Stanley Kubrick directed the movie, we call it that because Stephen King isn't a big fan of this adaptation. He doesn't like what Stanley Kubrick did to his novel. And of course, Stanley Kubrick is going to do what Stanley Kubrick wants to do, and it's a little different from the book. But you know what? You can like both of them. It is okay. You can love the novel. You can love this film. I do. They're two different mediums and forms of entertainment. And what a novel can do and what a film can do are completely different. And what Stanley Kubrick does is he decides to focus on a certain element and works with that. And yes, he makes a few changes, but not anything you're going to stomp around and kick and wail and anything that fanboys get passionate about. This is an amazing movie. It's as good as you've heard if you haven't seen it. And if you haven't seen it, I will be talking about a few spoilers in this movie. I mean, Stephen King goes on record saying he was ecstatic that Stanley Kubrick was going to direct this movie. He was a huge fan of 2001: A Space Odyssey and Doctor Strangelove, and most film lovers, we are fans of those films. Stanley Kubrick is considered one of the greatest directors of all time, and he wanted to tap into the horror genre and adapt one of the most famous and upcoming writers of its time into film. And he cast one of the biggest stars of film at the time with Jack Nicholson. I mean, this poster is one of the reasons they decided to go after Jack Nicholson for the Joker and Batman. It's that iconic. Even if you haven't seen this movie, you've seen scenes either satirized, parodied, or referenced in other movies or TV shows. The creepy little twin girls, Jack Nicholson saying, "Here's Johnny," as he cuts open the door with the axe and pokes his head in. This movie's iconic. I mean, Stanley Kubrick, with the way he sets up shots, the cinematography, the score, they perfectly set up the mood and tension that you're slowly going into a madness of hell of the mind. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about The Shining, it's about a writer slash English teacher, Jack Torrance, played Jack Nicholson, who is hired by an overlook hotel in Colorado to be the caretaker throughout the winter and the fall and winter as the off season of this hotel, because Colorado is infamous for its brutal winters and not able to produce enough guests and income to support the hotel. So he brings along his family, Wendy, played by Shelley Duvall, and his son, Danny, who might have some supernatural gifts or some supernatural entity within him that also plays an effect as they come to this hotel. Now, Stephen King has also said he's not a huge fan of Jack Nicholson in the role, even though he loves Nicholson's performance and loves Nicholson as an actor. He says it isn't a stretch for Nicholson to play a madman. And it's not. We've seen Nicholson do this time and time again, but he's great at it. And I guess in the novel, you want to believe that Jack's psyche is slowly going mad, that he was once a good man, and that his alcoholism and his anger builds as this haunted hotel taps into his dark psyche and plays on that. It doesn't matter, though, because Nicholson's great in this role, and Shelley Duvall is also great in this role. People have criticized her because she doesn't look the way that King writes Wendy in the novel. Now, this is something that continues to go on. Fanboys get so up in arms about casting if an actor doesn't look a role. Michael Keaton as Batman, Heath Ledger as the Joker, Daniel Craig as James Bond. It doesn't matter, people. If an actor can play the role and is believable enough in the character it inhabits, they're doing a great job. And judging an actress on her physical looks or whether you find her attractive or not is just despicable. No actor should be judged on this, particularly women. An actor should be judged on whether they're believable enough in their performance. Do they have chemistry with their leads? And as trying to play a devoted loving wife to her husband, but also being a protective mother and knowing that her child's safety is more important than anything, well, then Shelley Duvall does a great job in this movie. And she does a great job standing toe-to-toe with Jack Nicholson, who is quite intimidating when he's on full-on Jack mode. The child actor playing Danny is also great. Everything in this movie is just unbelievable. It's amazing. It's truly one of the greatest horror films ever made. I remember the first time I saw The Shining, it was as a double feature on A&E. It came on immediately after The Exorcist, and that is just a great way of seeing some of the best horror films ever, back to back. Very rarely now does a big studio release horror films, not only of horror films, but horror films of this caliber. These are not just great horror movies. This is a great movie made by one of our greatest masters of cinema, and he impeccably directs this and in firing on all cylinders. This movie is as great and amazing as you've heard it is. The acting is great. The music, the score, the shots, the cinematography, everything builds the tension as we slowly get into the motel and everything slowly seeps into madness. Another difference that's in the movie that's from the novel is a character played by Scatman Crothers, who's the head cook of the Overlook Hotel. He has a particular psychic ability the same as Danny does, and it's called Shining, hence the name of the novel and film, The Shining. Anyways, in the movie, his character is killed as he is communicating with Danny, and he comes to the Overlook Hotel to help them. In the novel, he survives. He helps Wendy and Danny escape the hotel and leaves Jack to die. All that's the same other than his character dying. This is a minor thing. I know some people get bent up in shape, but as I said, film and novels are two different mediums, and the things you can do in a novel and expand and look into don't necessarily work into a film. You can't have different subplots and everything that's enriched in a novel and the backstories and all the other things that we enjoy when we read a novel. Because a film, you only have about 2 or 2.5 hours to tell the story, and it needs to get from point A to point B and continue to hold that tension. And that's what Kubrick does. He holds this psychological tension throughout, once the film begins till the film ends. It is a hell of a ride. It's an amazing movie. If you're a fan of film, period, not just a Stanley Kubrick fan, not just a Stephen King fan, not just a horror film fan, you have to see this movie. It is amazing. I'm going to give it my highest grade I give a movie, and that's an A+. It is truly one of the best films ever made. And probably Stanley Kubrick's last masterpiece. I enjoy Full Metal Jacket, but I like the first half of that movie more than the second half. And I haven't seen Eyes Wide Shut, but that is a divisive film. So do yourself a favor. It's on Netflix right now. Watch The Shining. That's it for my thoughts on Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. There's a 1997 miniseries that was made that a lot of fans say is closer to King's novel, and King has gone on to be a fan of. King has given his love of that. So if you want to check that out, I guess you could find that on DVD somewhere. I have not seen that, so I cannot review or say whether it's better or just as good or closer to the novel. I'm sure it's fine. It's probably not great, but if you're more of a purist, you might want to check that out. I'll try and do some more Stephen King reviews if I can. I'm going to see Wind River today, so I'll post my thoughts on that movie either tomorrow or sometime this week. That's all I got for now, people. Hope you have a great weekend. Stay safe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.